How do you kill China's golden age without ever drawing a sword? For Emperor Xuanzong, easy. He ruled the richest dynasty in the world. He had power, armies, philosophers, dancers, and enough gold to make Midas jealous. Before the romance, he was a reformer. Sharp, disciplined, almost boring. He cut palace expenses, booted corrupt officials, and made the Tang Dynasty military terrifying again. For a while, he was everything a Golden Age emperor should be, until power got too comfortable, and boredom started to whisper, and managed to fumble the bag in spectacular fashion. On paper, he was a legend, expanded the empire, strengthened the economy, made Chang and the cultural capital of the world. In real life, let's just say he let his heart, and other parts, make executive decisions. Xuanzong didn't just rule, he curated. While other emperors were drilling troops, he was hiring flute players. While rivals trained assassins, he built tea pavilions and studied incense menus. He turned the Tang court into a palace-themed music festival, every day. His pleasure palace? 700 acres of gold-plated overkill. Towering pagodas, moonlit lakes. He built gardens the size of cities, and an entire department dedicated to party planning. If emperors were judged by vibes alone, he was untouchable. Hosted parties that started on Tuesday and ended sometime next season. Diplomats admired him. Poets worshipped him. But behind the painted fans and polished jade, the empire was quietly loading a gun, and he was handing out the bullets. And then came her. Yang Guifei didn't just enter the story, she hijacked it. Not a queen, not even a noblewoman. She was an entertainer, a dancer, a walking scandal with perfume for blood and political disaster in her back pocket. She wasn't just beautiful, she was magnetic, witty, cultured, and trained in everything from poetry to palace politics. She knew exactly how to use emotion like a weapon, crying at just the right moment, flattering Xuanzong's poetry, or faking jealousy to keep his attention sharp. She was everything Xuanzong didn't know he was looking for, until he saw her and short-circuited. There was just one problem. She was married, to his son. But when you're emperor, morality is optional. Xuanzong forced a divorce, sent her off to a Taoist nunnery for exactly long enough to make it look legit, then summoned her back and made her his imperial consort. And just like that, the most powerful throne in Asia became a front-row seat to his own personal soap opera. He gave her everything: silk from Sichuan, pearls from Hainan, custom orchestras for her afternoon mood swings. But the most dangerous gift? Power. And that's when things started to unravel. Because Yang Guifei didn't come alone. She brought her cousin, Yang Guozhong. If you've ever wondered what nepotism looks like when it's weaponized, this guy's your case study. He was arrogant, incompetent, backstabbing, and deeply, profoundly unqualified. Dumb enough to start fights with generals, and a man so corrupt, even his bribes had bribes. So, naturally, Xuanzong made him chancellor of the empire. Imagine giving your girlfriend's cousin access to the army, the treasury, and your royal inbox. What could possibly go wrong? While Yang Guifei soaked in rosewater and hosted moon parties, Yang Guozhong taxed peasants into riots, sabotaged military strategy, and picked fights he couldn't finish. And Xuanzong? He didn't care. He was too busy writing poems about Yang Guifei's eyebrows. No, really, whole verses, about eyebrows. The empire? It was cracking. Provincial governors were furious. The military was falling apart. The people were starving while the palace burned incense and read love poems aloud. And in the middle of it all, Yang Guifei, draped in silk, sipping wine, watching dancers reenact her own life story like it was a historical drama, written in real time. But the real twist? Her so-called adopted son. Enter General An Lushan. An Lushan was charming, ambitious, deadly, and completely in bed, politically, maybe literally, with the ruling family. He called Yang Guifei mother, and Xuanzong treated him like a son. But behind their backs, he was raising an army. In 755 AD, he made his move. Not a minor mutiny, a full-scale burn everything, light the capital on fire kind of rebellion. It was a massacre in progress, and we haven't even got to the worst part yet. Enjoying this imperial disaster so far? Like and subscribe before the rebels torch the next scene. An Lushan didn't just rebel. He kicked down the gates of China's golden age and drop-kicked it into a bonfire. This wasn't a protest. It was full-blown apocalypse. The guy marched into northern China like he'd been waiting for this moment his entire life. Which, let's be honest, he probably had. And Xuanzong completely froze. No military plan, no rallying speech, just blind panic, and one very fast horse. He didn't just flee the capital with disgrace. He evacuated with flair. Chariots, concubines, royal treasures, and the world's most awkward road trip. All while Chang'an, the crown jewel of Tang culture, burned behind him. Poets gone, temples smashed, citizens slaughtered. Everything he'd built over 4 decades? Ashes in the wind. And the worst was still ahead. Because when your soldiers are starving, broke, and being marched through mountains, they get a little testy, and they started asking a very uncomfortable question. Why are we even here? Who let this happen? Who gave that snake Yang Guifei power? Who adopted An Lushan into the imperial family? They didn't point fingers at An Lushan. They pointed at her. Yang Guifei, the woman with jasmine oil in her hair and blood on her name. The emperor's obsession, and now, according to the troops, the empire's real traitor. They said she let An Lushan and his army in the royal city, politically and maybe even physically. Was it true? Truth doesn't matter when your empire's on fire. They whispered that mother and son was just a palace cover story. They didn't want answers. They wanted justice, or, more accurately, vengeance with a silk ribbon. And they gave Xuanzong a choice. She dies, or you die. Imagine the vibe shift. One day you're writing poetry about her lips. The next, your own army is demanding her execution. Or else, no court, no trial, just a dusty roadside temple in Sichuan, and an emperor with no options left. They handed her a length of white silk. That was the elegant way to die. Tang Dynasty etiquette. Hang yourself. Look pretty doing it. Don't inconvenience the army. Xuanzong didn't say goodbye, didn't hold her hand, didn't even watch. The emperor who once stopped the state for her birthday let her die off camera. Some say he buried her quietly in the hills. Others claim he later sent a team to dig up her bones and move them somewhere worthy. But it didn't matter. She was gone. The poetry stopped. So did Xuanzong. Not long after, he abdicated, handed the throne to his son, locked himself away in a Taoist monastery, the ancient Chinese version of rage-quitting your own empire. And he did what every MOX emperor does, wrote poems, dozens of them, all about Yang Guifei. Meanwhile, the Tang Dynasty? Absolutely wrecked. The An Lushan rebellion dragged on for 8 brutal years. The death toll? Over 30 million. Yes, million. With a capital M. That's not a rebellion. That's a civilization reset. The economy tanked. The borders shrank. The Golden Age became a survival story. The Tang Dynasty limped on, technically. But it would never fully recover. All because one emperor, who started as a reformer, a builder, a leader, let his crown slide off his head and into someone else's perfume bath. He wanted love. He got war. He wanted legacy. He got a cautionary tale. The emperor who lost everything, not in battle, but in bed. Comment below, was this the worst imperial romance ever? What would you have done? And don't say divorce. Let's play a game. Spot the AI fails in this video. Bet you missed a few.